Alright, we're working on a 2006 Ford Expedition with the four-wheel drive, and I'm going to be showing how to replace the front brakes on here. Now the first thing we have to do is to pop these caps off, and just get a screwdriver in here and just get a hold of this and pop this thing out of the way so we can get to our lugs. There's also a slot on this side here as well we'll need to get to, and so we should be able to get that out of there, and it sticks on there pretty good. These are going to be 13/16. I'm using a 6-sided. I've already got this jacked up here. I've just got a hold of this beam right here, and I'm going to be putting a jack stand here in the back here as well before I start taking these loose. But we're just going to go ahead and get this wheel off here. Okay, the next thing I'm going to remove is this clip, and there's a little notch in this thing. You can't see it at this point, but you have to push this back. Like, in other words, I'm going to push it back in that direction to be able to pop it out of this groove here. So what I have to do is push that way, and then I'll lift up, because there's a little nook on this thing that catches in this groove in here, a little lip. So I have to push it back that way and then pick up, and I have to do the same exact thing at the bottom, and I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get this loose here. Okay, so when you push that back, the whole thing will just pretty much just pop off there. And this is this little groove that I was telling you about that's on there. You can see how it's got that little piece there that goes into that, and it catches. So when you pop it in, it catches in that little groove in there. So you'll have to push that back, otherwise you'll bend this thing trying to get it loose. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get back here with our fingernail and just take this plug off. And we've also got one down here at the bottom. We're going to pop that off as well. Now what we have to do is take a 9mm hex and get in here, and then we're just going to start taking these loose, and they can be kind of tight, so I like to use a little cheater bar to get these loose. So we're just going to go ahead and do that, and at this point, and get the pins completely out, the top and the bottom. Okay, now once we get it loose, it'll just kind of sit there and turn, and sometimes you have to get a hold of this and carefully push that pin back a little bit farther. You can see how I'm just pushing the whole thing, because it just wants to kind of sit there and spin. It won't just back itself out, and I have to do the same thing at the one on the bottom, just kind of where I can get it where I can push it out of the way so I can slide this caliper off of here easier. So I'm going to go ahead and just slide that bottom one over at this point, and with this one here I can go ahead and just take it completely out of the way. And with the pins completely out, I just start wiggling this thing. The back one is spring clipped in, so it's not going to stay on there. This one here will probably slide off with it too, but I just start working with it. It's because it's going to be kind of snug, and I'll tug at the bottom and the top and just start wiggling this thing until I get it to turn loose here. Okay, and here we are, we got the whole thing off, and you can see these on this side actually aren't too bad. The ones on my other side were just horrible, and it's actually damaged my rotor enough on that side that it's not going to be usable. This one here appears to be okay for the most part, but definitely a lot of wear on these things anyways. But these aren't just too horrible. I'm kind of surprised that the other side was plumb down into the metal, and these are still in halfway decent shape. Now the back one's not doing real good, you can see that. But I wanted to show you Now these things have these clips that go into the inside of this bore of this thing, but on top of that, it's also got this spring that goes right here. So we have to make sure that we get that put back the same way. And you can see how it hooks on to the bottom of that pad there, and then it comes up into this thing and connects. So we're going to have to put it back just like that. So right now I'm just going to work on getting the old pad off here, and we're going to work on getting these new ones back in. Okay, now getting the old pad out of there took a little bit of prying with a screwdriver, and you can see it's got these clips here. And you know, even though it doesn't look horrible, you can see the difference, you know, in a new one. Huge difference. This piece is kind of tricky to get back in because, like I said, we got this other little spring that it has to go into here. Actually, there's a little groove back up in there, and we have to get this going into that. It basically just goes kind of down in there like so. It's kind of hard to show you, but it just goes like that with a little zigzaggy thing up in there, and that little piece on the groove. And then this part will go up directly onto that right there. So in other words, I'm going to be setting this on here like this, and that spring is going to go into that hole there before I start working this in. Now I will also say that you're going to need, I've done a previous one, you're going to need to get your screwdriver, and when you're putting this in, it's not just going to want to shove in there. At least mine didn't. I had to push these over with a screwdriver and get it going, and kind of push them in a little bit and squeeze them and get them to line up just right. But so the first thing I got to do is get that piece onto that right there before I can even start working it down in there. So I'm going to go ahead and free up both my hands here. Okay, I wanted to show you another angle of this while I was working it down in here. You can see how I got that going up through there. I'm just working in. I've got one in going in. I'm just going to work this side in, just popping it in. And I showed you kind of how that went back up in that direction where the little spring goes into that, and then it just pops up there, and I guess it just keeps tension on it. But I'm just working on popping this the rest of the way in here. Okay, I actually had to backtrack here because I'd forgotten to compress my pistons, and I didn't even realize it till I went to put it on. So you're going to need a couple of C-clamps. I'm just using the old pad here. We're just going to press these all the way back in as far as we can get them here. And I'll go ahead and put that pad back on again. I already showed y'all, you know, how that goes. So I'll just pick up back where I left off. Okay, so we've got that back on there. Don't forget to compress your pistons like I did, or you'll be taking it back off. So we've just, this pad, as far as it goes, it just sets right on there. Nothing hard about that. Well, yeah. So anyways, that just goes just like that. And this one's going to go on here. So we're gonna try to set this on here one-handed. This thing's kind of a beast. And okay, so yeah, if you got it pressed back far enough, you can see how easily that goes on there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pin, I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on here, put a little bit of grease around this part. Just going to put those in one at a time doing that. So some Loctite, and then some grease. We're going to slide this back in and start tightening that. Okay, like I said, just got a little bit of Loctite, a little thin layer of grease. Doesn't take a whole lot. I'm just using some high temperature grease that I've got laying around. I'm not using anything special. I know they got the lube grease you can use, but this is what I have handy. So anyways, those you have to just kind of wiggle them in as far as you can get them. And I'm going to free up both of my hands. Make sure you got them lined up well before you want to start tightening them up so you don't cross thread them. I'm going to go ahead and free up both hands and start tightening these up here now. Okay, we've gotten those tightened up with our 9mm. And one thing I will say is that you definitely want to make sure that you have this caliper good straight, because if it's not, it will not go on there at all. It won't, they just won't tighten up. So you have to get this thing straight, and then they'll go right in, no problem. So right now I'm just getting ready to replace these little caps, little dust caps, and if I can find the other one. But so just those, just don't forget to put those on the ends there. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Like I said, you know, you'll want to monitor your fluid, because you have to push this piston back so far to make sure that it's not overflowing, so you may need to take some fluid out. But we're going to go ahead and just pump the brakes up, add fluid as needed at this point, and we're just going to be getting this, well, we got to get our clip back on. Okay, so then again, this thing has the little grooves, so we have to get it going in that way, and once it pops in, it's, you know, it'll stay in there. So I'm going to free up both of my hands, and before I forget, we're going to pop this spring back on. Like I said, don't forget this either. Okay, this clip is actually pretty easy. I just got the top side on first, and then I just took the bottom one and slid this part into place first, and then just kind of pushed this back and popped it into where it goes, and just make sure that it's seated well. And so that's all there is to that. So we're going to just go ahead at this point and pump the brakes up and get our wheel on, and we're all finished up here. So like I said, hopefully that can help somebody else out. So the main thing, you're just going to need to get you a 9mm if you don't have one. I didn't have one, so I had to go get one. And you know, other than that, it's really pretty straightforward, other than just that one little funky spring there. It's not too bad. So hopefully that can help out, and thank y'all for watching.